Hi there, everyone, and welcome again to the From Desk to Dynasty podcast. Sitting down with a super exciting guest today, Mr. George Randle. Very excited to learn about, all about him, his experiences, and what he's got going on in his company right now. So, without further ado, George, I'll pass it across to yourself for a quick introduction.
Well, hey, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Really appreciate it. And giving me enough time on U.S. Central Time to join the podcast. So thank you.
No problem. For sure. So, George, just for those, who might not know you yet,
Yeah.
could you maybe share with us a little bit about your journey into recruitment and I guess what sort of drew you to the industry?
Wow. Okay. Let's see if I can get this into a thumbnail because it's a lot of years. I don't want to age myself too much. I, I enlisted in the U.S. Army to pay for school, then became an officer, spent about 8, 9 years around the world. Um, and as you could imagine, one of the things that you're doing is leading and building teams,
Yep.
which is really, really important. But there's a certain point in your career where, you're not going to be with troops anymore. You're not going to do those fun things that you like to do. So I jumped out. And to really shorten the story, I got a job helping veterans recruit veterans into corporations. And so I kind of learned the craft, and I really liked it because it combined me helping with people like myself transitioning. And from there, ended up going to a consulting firm for about 7 years and got into talent acquisition, and the light bulb came on for me. And it was really just, look, individuals don't win, teams do. And I knew so much about the business and so much about leadership that it became just kind of a natural thing to start building teams. And so that just took, I don't know, the next 20 years and went to some very, very large companies. One year recruited about seven people shy of 24,000. My teams did in 1 year.
Wow.
And then not long after that, ended up writing a book on talent when I paired up with my co-author when we realized, you know what, we're seeing the same companies make the same mistakes over and over and over, so why don't we talk about it? And to our surprise, it did very, very well on Amazon. So went from there to executive search and coaching, and here I am today.
Amazing. Amazing. So obviously coming from that, more military background, building teams, everything like that, do you use obviously a lot of those skills, you're using them day in, day out? What do you think are the most important ones that you can bring across to the world you're in now?
Well, a lot of people have asked me that question, and I would share with you the first thing is that the military is the world's greatest leadership incubator. And one of the unique things about, certainly, and I can only speak for the U.S. military, is that you're thrust into an environment where it's as diverse as it comes: location, ethnicity, gender, religion. You pick your category. So your teams and companies are made up of this very, very, the widest spectrum you could imagine of people. And so to answer your question directly, is being able to lead with good communication skills, being able to have high integrity, set high standards, but also relate to all of those people that you lead. Those things directly carry over.
Yep.
Additionally, about getting things done. I mean, the military at the end of the day is about training and execution and doing your mission. And so, the discipline side comes in where I'm able to just, even if there's a setback, keep going. But I would tell you the one that relates to talent acquisition the most is just that you're in an environment, and I work with everybody from back in the day, the Soviets,
Yep.
to multiple foreign armies in organizations. So you really have to learn to be a complete leader and communicate well, and really understand where other people are coming from, and that's very, very, very helpful in the business world and especially in talent acquisition.
Yeah. I can only imagine it transfers so much and yeah, being a good leader and leading from the front, that's where everything starts from. So yeah, super interesting. And nice to see that, your move from military sort of happened gradually where you were still in that similar realm, helping people who had done what you had done. So yeah, I love that.
Yeah, that's where it really kicked off. Was making the business case to companies about hiring transitioning veterans and what all of those things that you just asked me about, what do they bring to companies? Well, there's a lot of people who have misunderstandings about, any military organization, let alone the U.S. military, and what they bring. And so I'm getting to help people, but I'm also learning how to speak to the businesses. And there's a certain sales side to it, but it really is just making a business case as to, why that talent is going to be really helpful. And so I kept perfecting my craft until I left consulting and I went to a company called Hewlett Packard. And that's really, that's what I shortened out. But I went from my first year of leading the U.S. and Canada to I picked up the entire Americas down to Argentina. And by
Wow.
the 18th or 19th month, I had the entire globe of a 135,000 person organization. And so that was recruiting on steroids. That was, at any given time, I would have 7,000 open positions across the world.
That's, yeah, I can only
A
imagine.
little mind-boggling at that point, and it really was one of those things. Hey, you're just dropped in the middle of the ocean, start swimming.
Yeah, it's the type of job where you're getting no sleep whatsoever.
Yeah, and actually it was because I would follow the sun,
Yeah,
because I've got recruiting organizations as far east as Manila,
okay.
and then I've got people on the west coast of the United States. So I think my favorite day was Thursday night because I knew Friday that at least three-quarters of my team or half of my team was going to be off the emails, off the phones. So, but then Sunday I would be out on the as you would call a football pitch. I'm a competitive soccer
Yep.
player in the U.S. and then my email would start lighting up mid-afternoon Sunday.
Beautiful, beautiful, amazing. But no, so what you're doing, now, George, if you could maybe just walk me through the early stages of your firm, what was the original vision and how has that sort of evolved over time?
So our two founders, they had come from there's a term in the U.S. called Shrek firms. It's an acronym for a bunch of the top companies, and they had been in one of those very, very large companies for an extended period of time. And essentially, what they were tired of was kind of like the military pyramid, the hierarchy. So anytime they were doing search, it was all about trickle down and who had what lane and who had this, and they got tired of it. So they came over and they really wanted to build a client-centric search firm.
Yeah.
And so I was brought in at that time. I got very lucky because I hadn't started an executive search, but I was always on the inside briefing all of the executives as their head of talent acquisition. And it really was, look, as I said in my book, one of the things that I really identified with them, it wasn't recruiting. They weren't making decisions with the calculator. What they were doing was delivering talent solutions to business problems. And they just took it very, very seriously about getting the right person. And I really identified that and the teamwork that they start. So it's about a 65 person firm right now.
Wow. Amazing. Amazing. Yeah, I think you're so correct. It's like let's get away from this bums on seat mentality and
Oh, yeah.
actually, yeah, and actually provide talent that, is going to be beneficial for both because you provide good talent, they stay for, years. It just reflects even better on your firm.
Yeah, there's been a lot of firms that approached me and they were very, fee centric, and having been head of global talent acquisition for a number of firms, I would run into these big executive firms and I found out that there was a certain amount of recycling candidates. Like if they had a great candidate, don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with it, but I might see them from three different firms,
Yep.
which always told me, wait a minute, maybe you're not quite hearing what the ideal fit for our company is, because I said no to three companies for the same candidate, three
Yeah.
different ways. And so, we don't, our firm doesn't do that. I mean, we are really looking for the unique fit and trying to help our client determine what success is before we even go to market.
Love it. So yeah, I mean, clear competitive edge there. But we look back to those early days. Also, you came in, in very elementary stages of the business.
Oh yeah.
What were the biggest challenges that you and the two founders sort of faced in growing that operation? If we've got enough time.
Yeah, no. It's funny. What I was going to say is all of those problems that I ran into early on were all the things I blew up later on when I got into leadership positions.
Okay.
And I kept track, I kept score. I would tell you the U.S. Army is probably one of the biggest bureaucracies in the world, but there are several companies out there that can rival
Yeah.
the Army for bureaucracy. And that was the first frustration. Is I would get somebody like you who'd come to me and say, hey, I need a candidate that can do X, Y, and Z, that's in a certain location, here's the pay band. And let's say we found it. There were sometimes 10 to 12 steps. This is back in the day, mind you, and things are changing and speeding up a lot, which isn't necessarily, speed is not necessarily
Yep.
helpful. It can be, but I would see all this bureaucracy in the way of getting what we would consider an A player for talent into the company. I would see hiring. The real big one, and this will probably resonate with any recruiter that's listening, is hiring managers that thought they knew talent better than I did. It drove me absolutely nuts. So bureaucracy, the hiring managers just wanting to see resumes after resumes after resumes where I felt like I was spinning my wheels. And then the hiring managers that weren't taking advantage of their own talent and their own team. And so as I moved through the ranks, which happened very, very rapidly, that jump at HP was an enormous one. I was very blessed to work there and for the people I worked with and that put me in the role. But I started blowing that stuff up. I'm like,
Yeah.
look, if we find a person, let's get them on board. Additionally, one of the things that I learned is that hiring managers, when they found somebody they liked, they would sell really, really hard. And I was always of the belief, and it started back with veterans, that I don't want to sell this candidate on coming here. I'm going to tell you all about our company and all of the things that might benefit your career based on what you've shared with me is your next best role. And if they don't align and you have objections, I moved on very, very quickly. Because somebody that comes to the job market hungry, we put this in our book, don't go to the grocery store hungry, you'll get a lot of things you don't want
Yep.
that taste and look good for you. The search is kind of the same way, both on the company side and the candidate side. And not to derail off your question too far, but I never talked candidates into roles. I was like, I either had their buy-in early or I would just say, look, this isn't for you. And I ended up making a lot better matches. I didn't lose candidates. Most of the candidates that I would place at companies would have long periods of tenure there. And I was
Yep.
very proud of that.
Yeah, I mean, the grocery store analogy is, I think, so so important. I think it's something like 70% of the talent pool is passive. So
Yeah.
again, yeah, so those people who, are hungry entering the grocery store, it can sometimes lead to, rash decisions and misalignment. So I think you're bang on with your strategy
Yeah.
there.
If I were to say, if I were to go back and answer your earlier question, it was one thing, it wasn't an obstacle, but it was one thing I learned, which was I had to teach or pull out from hiring managers what did success mean. And let me share this with you, and I don't mean to take us too far
Of
astray.
course.
Even with chat GPT and AI and all of that, which a lot of people have asked me about, everybody's resume looks great now. I mean, you can't help but have your resume written in the best
Yeah.
way using chat GPT. So if you're a hiring manager, your resumes aren't all that far apart. There's not a lot of differentiation. So if you're not in the talent acquisition space and you're not getting success, what success factors are above and beyond what I call the table stakes, the experience, if you're not getting those intangibles out of the hiring manager, you're going to have a tough search. Alternatively, so I learned that early on, but then you learn that on the candidate side that if they're passive or active, Have they come to the grocery store hungry? Do they know what success looks like? Are they looking for a job, or are they really looking to grow themselves and they are really examining those opportunities? And you got to get that out of them to see if you really do have a right fit. I mean, I joke, and this is not received well by the HR and the talent acquisition communities, but with enough bananas, I could teach a monkey to do recruiting. That part's not hard.
Yep.
It's the craft of really bringing talent into a team where it fits, and it's really a great win for both sides of the equation.
Yep. No, I love it. I think you're bang on. But obviously, just moving on to more growth and everything like that. Now, I mean, you guys are clearly building something or have built something incredible. I'm
Mhm.
always fascinated to understand how successful leaders do think about the future. So, say looking ahead over the next 12 to 24 months, George, what are the biggest growth priorities for the business?
Uh, really for us at the moment, it's kind of riding out a little bit of the market uncertainty. As much as we
Yep.
want to, every firm wants to be growing, but I think there's this global uncertainty. There are a lot of people that are looking for roles. And so what we're trying to do is, make sure that we're delivering excellence to the clients that we do have. The other thing, as far as the journey for success, is I think um, in recruiting, and this is the thing that people don't get about recruiting, whether it's executive search or otherwise. I'm going to be able to say yes to one person and get them their job. I've got to say no to five others. And so I think through that, it kind of built up as I've gotten into executive search. That and the discipline, the route to growth and success is you're grinding every day. Just because you place somebody, don't get complacent about your success. You can celebrate it, but you need to be driving on. So in our particular case, our focus is on what industries are growing, what businesses are growing, and how are we presenting ourselves? What are we doing to make sure that we are the partner of choice for getting talent on board? So every one of the team, I would say every day is probably spending 20 to 30% of their time prospecting, looking for new clients. You're going to hear no a lot, but even when you hear your first no, it might be a yes 9 or 10 months later if you've made a good impression. And so for us, growth is about discipline and grinding, never worrying about the obstacles. It's not a matter of if it's going to happen, it's when it's going to happen. And you set those numbers out there, those goals out there, and every day you just crank and do a little bit more. And it eventually falls your way.
Exactly. I mean, it's the classic saying in sales, but it's like, every no is one step closer to a yes. And I've
Hmm.
experienced that throughout my career as well. It's just relentless grinding, which feels thankless and it feels like you're getting nowhere.
It
And
does.
until you land that big win and you're like, oh, it was all worth it.
Yeah, and
So
I've
yeah,
had a couple of those, but one of the things, and it probably could have come from my time in the military, is okay, I got that big win. Now what's my next big win?
yeah,
I do take the time to celebrate it, and we celebrate it with the team, and we do things like that. But complacency is really what gets most businesses in trouble. And I'm also an executive coach, so I'm coaching a number of C suite executives. And it's one of the first things I say, don't get complacent. Hey, you just won this big deal, or you just brought on this big project. Okay, great. Let's celebrate. Let's win. All right, what's your next target? That I think separates, really high achievers are the people who it's not that they're greedy, it's just that they never sit on their laurels and say, you know what, hey, I've won, I'm going to take a couple weeks off. They're like,
yeah,
okay, hey, I was able to do this. Now what else can I do?
yeah. I would agree. It's just relentless dedication for the art and the passion. So no, I think you're so right there. But George, in terms of, if there was the one thing, that one thing, I know you touched upon prospecting and a little bit of uncertainty in the markets, but there's one thing in your business that if you could fix it or you can improve it, would have the biggest impact on your firm's growth. What do you think that would be?
Outside of the market switching to where people were a little bit, where jobs were more plentiful, um, for me personally, it would be to have a way to have more direct contact with the people that I'm trying to reach. Your tools are limited: LinkedIn, finding emails, lead generation. There's all kinds of different tools that you could use. But it's still very, very difficult to get to a decision maker. It's very difficult to find out who the decision maker is, who the person that can say yes is. Um, and really make sure, because the most precious commodity that you have actually in life in general, but certainly in talent acquisition at any level, is your time. And so the quicker that I can get to somebody, the better. And so, absent being able to put more hours in my day, it's I will tell you that Chat GPT and some other AI programs are now helping with the research, moving it a lot faster, that I can get deeper into a company very quickly and know who I should be talking to. And it's not there's anybody I shouldn't be talking to, but I want to leverage the time that I do have wisely. So I think a greater use of AI and research tools would probably be the biggest thing. Learning to use what's out there, growing with it, and using it and leveraging it as best I can.
Yeah, I think that's the thing with AI and all this new technology. It really is a minefield, and
It is.
like very busy people like yourself. I mean, as you said, you don't have enough hours in the day sometimes to even do the normal tasks.
Yeah.
Never mind search for other things like that. So yeah,
Yeah, I'm grateful that the tools come along. My wife is heavily into AI. She's a chief customer officer for a SaaS firm, and so I hear about it all the time. But the ability to use it correctly to help your business, as an individual, and to help your team, I think you've got to make time to learn how to do it. You absolutely have to. Now, in my function, talent acquisition and recruiting, will AI replace the human? No, I don't think that's ever going to happen. Um, AI is just data fields, but there are just some things that the human mind can pick up and perceive and elicit that it AI can't yet do.
yeah. And I mean, you guys are in the relationship game as well. Let's be
Yeah,
honest.
very
It's all
much.
relationships. No robot is going to be able to have the same impact or leave the same mark on someone else as, a skilled recruiter
Yeah.
is. So,
You
yeah.
can't build loyalty with a software tool.
No, you quite simply cannot. But yeah, I know you touched upon, so 65 man team. Um, Also there's lots of different growth channels out there. What is it that you guys find that works the best? So like outbound, do we get many referrals, partnerships, marketing? Where do we really invest most of our time?
Well, most of our time for our firm is generally in mid-market private equity. Um, you know, those mid-market private equity, we probably will play in the larger private equity market, but the mid-market, you see them combining a lot more companies and then having a greater need for talented people who can scale those organizations. So our real push is in the mid-market private equity space. As a company, as one of those companies puts three healthcare companies together, while you have three great companies, now you need a leadership team that's going to be able to take advantage of that new organization, shape that organization, lead it, set the vision, the strategy, and then start executing. And so that's where we're pushing the most, because we see the greatest need for leadership at the
Yep.
larger enterprise sized companies, and there's a few that I deal with. Um, that leadership seems to be a little bit more steady and stuck in stone due to the market. That unless something's going wrong in the company, you're not seeing as many departures. Now you see layoffs and stuff, but mid-market private equity is where we're focused.
Nice. I love it. And yeah, again, are there maybe a little bit of a harder question or a hard one to think of, but are there any strategies or ideas that you guys have tried in the last year that you found to be interesting, even if they maybe didn't quite work out the way that you'd hoped?
Um, I don't want to say there are. I guess the best way to say this is our company kind of operates on the best idea wins, which is another reason I joined the firm. Of course, I've shared with them that phrase that we use in the book. So if there's a new idea out there where somebody wants to go explore an avenue, our two owners have given like managing partners like myself the freedom to go try and to do whatever we want, which is absolutely great, and that even includes giving us the freedom on cost. In our marketplace, there's a pretty standard fee percentage across all of the firms. And we have the ability to work with our clients and be client centric. Okay, well, what do you need? What would work for you? Instead of throwing out these large chunks of money for, a potential executive, what if we string these out? What if we change these? What if we make a flat rate? So, are there anything out there that we've tried and haven't tried? I'm sure there's a lot of it. But I would just stress we have the freedom to try whatever we want to. And if it works, you keep doing it, or you tweak it, course correct. If it still doesn't work, go on to the next thing. But it really sticks with you have to dedicate time every day to business development, every
Yeah,
single day,
yeah.
every day.
I think it's really hard because, as I say, it's the most thankless task. But I think you've touched upon such an important point where it's like I think I heard Jeff Bezos say it was something like, you should make decisions when you're 70% certain, because by
Yeah,
the time you're 90% certain, your competitor's already made five iterations and now they're, five
yeah,
steps in front. So I think that speaks to what you've mentioned there of like you guys have the flexibility to, if you want to go off and try something a little bit different, something out there, you can do it. And then you
yeah.
get the feedback in a very quick cycle.
We do, and it's nice to have that freedom. I don't have to ask for permission, and I don't ever have to ask for forgiveness. Um, there's no idea that you're going to try that's unethical or illegal or
Yeah,
anything like that. It's just going to be more creative. And as long as it protects the brand, as long as it protects and represents the company well, that freedom is something that I enjoy, but a lot of large firms don't grant their people. Now, they're successful in their own right, so I don't want to take that away as a net negative. I just know it's a positive where myself and my colleagues work.
yeah, for sure. No, I think that is the way things should be done. Because again, that's how you move a business forward. If you got, because you employ people who you employ them for a reason because you like them, you think they can do a good job, and then if you
Yeah,
put them in a box where it's like, hey, what we say goes, you sort
yeah,
of lose a little bit of that. Um,
yeah. As far as leadership, and that was, going back to your very first question, I would say that carried over from the military. Is
yep,
that look, I might have a plan, but that doesn't make me the smartest person in the room. Being the smartest person in the room is being humble enough to look around at my subordinate leaders and saying, okay, poke holes in this.
yep,
What's not going to work? How could we take it up a notch or two? What would make it better? And I've carried that through. And so even the senior associates and the research people, the executive assistants that work with me, I've got a great idea to go after something. I run it through them. Hey, what do you guys think? Tell me why this will work. Tell me why it won't work. What would you do differently? How would you approach it? And what do I care if they make
yeah,
my idea better? You know,
exactly.
but you'd be amazed at the number of people that, if it's not their idea, they don't want to do it. If it's
Yeah,
not fully in agreement, and I've always just been one of those people. Listen, if you can make it better, make it better. I'll go out and do the legwork for it.
100%. And asking questions like this and bringing, your more junior workforce as well into your mindset and
Yeah.
your ideas, it only breeds growth for them.
When I led large teams, um, And I think I've led everything from maybe a team of 15 upwards of when I was matrixed out. At one point, I hit 600 recruiters. They were matrixed out, meaning we had large projects, but generally I don't think it exceeded on our recruiting team about 300, 325. But, I made sure that everybody knew as the leader that A, I was approachable.
Yep.
You could ask me anything. Don't be afraid of failure. But if you have a great idea, go try it. I mean, with 300 and some people, that's a lot of intellectual horsepower, and you're the idiot of a leader if you don't tap into it.
100%. 100%. No, I think it's such an important way to look at things because, yeah, some people are very my way or the highway type of
Yeah.
mentality, which again, I don't think it bodes for successful relationships with employees and then also just growth across the board, whether that's personal growth for,
Yeah.
your more junior guys or business growth on a more macro level. So I think it's so important.
Yeah. I would tell you, out of that group at HP, we probably and another two companies have spawned 4 or 5 heads of talent acquisition out of the group
Yep,
that I led. And so those are success markers to me.
hundred
And
percent,
they're growing those people behind them. And it's just wonderful to see.
100%, 100%. No, I think I think that's a point a lot of people can learn from and hopefully also resonate with. But yeah, if again another maybe difficult one. I know you've touched upon AI a little bit here, a few different things. But if you could test out one idea in the business with absolutely zero risk, what would you love to try? Is there anything that pops up in your head?
Yeah, for me, in my particular line of work, um, it's a crazy idea, but I would probably start a. I would host a great big conference with all of our clients as a thank you, and then I would
Nice.
start masterminds and working groups out of those where there's no competitiveness. You don't want to put two competitors or people that would be in the same space together. Um, but get mastermind groups together as it relates to what leadership challenges do we have, which of those can be solved by talent, which are truly talent problems. That's probably something that I would try is throwing on for all of the clients that we've had kind of a great big thank you. And I know enterprise sized companies will do that and invite the leaders. But I'd love to be doing it as a search firm. And I think we'll get there. I think we'll get there, but we just don't want to get too big. And so it is a very costly endeavor. But if money wasn't an issue, it'd be the first thing I did is bring all of our clients together as a thank you and, just kind of a celebration of all the great things they're doing.
Amazing. I love it. I love it. But yeah, so just sort of wrapping up to a little bit of a close here now, George. And I know you sort of touched upon it almost just right there about, seeing people that used to be in your team who are now went on to, fill big positions and really succeeding. But out of your whole journey from start to finish, what has been the most rewarding part of that as a leader for you?
And we wrote about this in the book, and I do this in my speeches. And so since we're closing, these are kind of the two things that I close with. To answer you directly, the thing that I'm most proud of is in my wake, I've left a legacy of leadership. People may not remember what I did in that particular organization, but they will remember that I contributed to their success and their growth.
Yep.
And so when I give speeches, I tell people your product's going to change, your service is going to change, your company is going to restructure, reform, any number of things that are going to change. The only thing that you can truly leave behind is a legacy of leadership. And I think that's the thing that I'm most proud of. I still get people contact me from 20 years ago going, hey, George, I just want to tell you where I am. And I'm shocked that I made that impression, but I think it's the most rewarding thing. And so how I've been able to do that is a question that I pose when I speak to leadership groups. And I ask them, there's one simple barometer, one test you can ask yourself every single day, and that is, am I the boss that I would want to work for?
Yep.
Am I delivering to every one of my employees everything that I would want delivered to me? Opportunity, ownership, value, teamwork, integrity. Am I delivering all of those things that I want to see in a leader? And if you can do that, then you're far ahead of most leaders and most bosses, managers.
100%. No, George, truly, truly one of the great leaders, from the sounds of it, from military all the way through your
Thank you.
career to where you're at now. So yeah, thank you so much for coming on,
Sure.
George. Where can people find yourself? Where can people find, your book, your business?
So the book is on Amazon. It's called The Talent War: How Special Operations and Great Organizations Win on Talent. We took the best of SEALs, Rangers, SAS, SBS, Green Berets, and then the best of tech companies, and we tried to pull that together to build a special book that said this is what talent looks like to the best of our ability. And it's not data heavy; it's story heavy because first of all, we're just not that cerebral. We didn't want to get into too much data. We used it where we needed. The other thing is they can see me at georgerandle.com, LinkedIn. Just spell my last name correctly, Randle, because a lot of people can't find me. They spell it the English way. And then our firm, Randall Partners. Anyway, but I connect with just about everybody that reaches out to me on LinkedIn, and I answer all my in-mail. So love to hear from anybody that has a question or could use some help.
Well, George, thank you so much again, my friend. I've really
Thank you.
enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it myself. Thanks so much for having me.
No problem at all. Thank you.